I always say to people, wrestling changed my life almost as much as anything in my upbringing, in terms of like giving me that confidence and that drive. And, I think it's taken me to where I am in my career now.
Which is superintendent of schools.
Yep. Canelan 302.
Okay, Boomer. Okay, Boomer. Okay, Boomer. Okay, Boomer. Okay, Boomer.
Welcome to OK Boomer. We're going to talk about wrestling today. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to be interested in this episode. If you've ever participated in sports, if you've been a parent of a child who's participated in sports, if you've been a coach, certainly, you will be interested in this episode because we're talking about moments in high school wrestling at Wauconda High School where athletes grew. Their characters were developed. They were challenged. They responded to the challenges. They learned about adversity. They grew from the adversity. And that's what sports is supposed to do. It's not supposed to necessarily bring you medals or trophies or honors. It's to develop the student athlete in a way that the classroom is not set up to do. And those are some of the stories we're going to share with you today. I have three guests I'm excited to share with you that you've heard before if you're a regular listener. We talked about wrestling about a year ago, and we spent the entire hour talking about moments in Wauconda High School wrestling that made us chuckle, laugh, guffaw, and I'm sure amused a number of our listeners. So if you want the lighter moments, then scroll back down the podcast title list and look for Matt Mayhem. There's a couple of episodes that recount things that we thought were pretty hilarious during our 30 years of coaching. But today, we're going to deal with moments on the mat that were poignant, that will give you the feels that struck us and memories that have stuck with us for 10, 20 years or more. The majority of what we're going to share will be moments where character was developed, life lessons were learned, young men took steps toward manhood. And so that's the theme of today. My guests, as they were with the lighter moments in wrestling, are Todd Costa, who not only wrestled for me in the 90s. When did you graduate, Todd?
95.
And he also coached for me for how many years?
13 officially on the staff and about 2 as a volunteer assistant.
Yeah, a long time wrestler, long time friend. Glad to have you back on the podcast. We also have Kurt Rohlwing. Like Todd, he wrestled for me, and Tim, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. And he also coached for Wauconda High School, so a lot of time there. And he was also a head coach of his own at Huntley High School. And you coached in the middle school level. What are we missing,
Yep.
Kurt, in your resume?
I did 5 years at Wauconda as both middle school head coach and then assistant coach at the high school. I did 3 years at Huntley as the head coach, and I refed then after that for another 10 years before I stepped off the mat for a while.
Long tenure involved with wrestling. And then we have TR, Tim Rennels, who he and I coached together side by side for 20-some years and coached both of these two gentlemen and have lots of memories to share. Tim also coached on the middle school level. He'll share a story or two from there. And he's also the head coach a very successful head coach for the Wauconda High School softball program. And welcome, Tim. Glad you're here.
Hi, Tom.
So we're going to jump right in here. We're going to swap stories. I'm going to start off by sharing a story about a wrestler named Brian Now. I think he wrestled in early 90s. And what was his affliction, gentlemen? Was it MS? What was he challenged with physically?
Cerebral palsy.
Yeah, it was
cerebral palsy.
Yes.
Which meant that he had limited mobility. His range of movement in his limbs was not normal, so he had trouble running. He struggled with doing many of the things in wrestling because we required more. I don't know what the right word is. More dexterity or limber limbs than what he did, but he was there and he worked hard and he was an inspiration to all of us in the room because it's tough to be a wrestler. And then when you're dealing with cerebral palsy and put yourself out there on the mat, even more so. What a tremendous amount of courage, he said. But the moment I want to pinpoint was we were at Marion Central, and Brian came up to me at the beginning of the meet. We're actually probably before weigh-ins. He says, "Coach, I don't feel real well." He says, "Do you mind if I don't wrestle tonight?" And I thought about it a moment, and I said, "Brian, at the beginning of this season, you asked me to treat you like any other wrestler. So I'm going to. I'm going to tell you that if you feel really bad, you're really sick, then no, don't wrestle. But if you can wrestle, if you can make it through a match, then you got to get out there and do it." And he kind of shook his head and he walked away. And Dave Falk, who was also assisting at that point, turned to me and said, "Gee whiz, man, let the kid, have a night off." I said, "I'm just doing what he asked me to do." And doggone it, if that wasn't the night, Brian won his first wrestling match.
It was
Tim?
quite a moment. It was quite a moment, though. He had battled against odds in every match and was overwhelmed in one way or another, but was quietly getting stronger and stronger. And there wasn't a thing you asked him to do that he didn't do. And
Yeah.
I think after that win at Marion, I think he said, "Okay, that's enough." And that was his last season, and he was content.
Tremendous amount of courage for anybody to put a singlet on. And then with Brian's situation, even more so. So we take our hat off and salute him and thank him for that moment, that memory. It was a big moment. It was very glad for him. So we've had wrestlers like Brian who didn't win very often, and then we've also had state champions. Todd, you want to talk to us about Scott Carlson's state championship?
Yeah, just watching a guy from freshman year all the way to senior year just progressing and put all that time and effort into it, and the fact that I was actually there at the Fresh Off State when he got destroyed by the guy that he wrestled in the state finals. And he got beat by that guy soundly. I mean, it wasn't even close. And then to see him wrestle that guy who was undefeated in the state finals that I saw beat him 2 years earlier pretty soundly and pin him, and he just destroyed him. And it was just to be a part of that, watching him grow and wrestle with him in practice and, just watch him win that state title. It's just awesome to be part of something like that, and have that feeling run through you when you see one of your kids that you feel you helped along win that state title.
Yeah, it was an improbable win, much like the other state champion that we had, Nate McGuire, who was going up against, and Todd, I always got to rely on you for, what was that guy's name?
From Montini, Edgar Ruano.
Thank you.
I always can remember the name.
I
Yeah, I always
know.
do.
I know. You got to rely on that. Edgar Ruano, him and McGuire had a long history. They battled, I don't know if they wrestled their freshman year. I'm pretty sure they did their sophomore, and I know they did their junior year. And Nate never won. That kid was good, and Nate was good, but he got beat. Usually it was like 5-3, 7-4, something like that. But Ruano had his number. Nate did beat him once in off-season wrestling, but that was the only time he ever had his hand raised against Edgar. So, of course, the senior year, who does he end up in the state finals against? Edgar Ruano. And like Carlson destroyed his kid, Nate destroyed Ruano. It was jaw-dropping. Like, what? Ruano probably wasn't as prepared as he should be, and Nate was very prepared. He went after and just kicked his butt.
I always felt that Nate was better than Edgar Ruano. I thought there was some sort of mental block in his head, and I always felt like he wrestled Ruano's match, not his own. But yeah, that was fun to watch too. Just him. I think the score was 17-5, maybe.
Yeah. He had him on his back for the last minute.
Yeah, that was fun to watch.
Good times. So we've got state champions that provided wonderful memories for us, but we accepted people who also were not of that same athletic caliber, like Brian now, and also girls like Molly Bitters.
Molly Bitters. Yes, she was, to me, the pioneer of girls in wrestling. My first experience with anyone daring to come on the mat, let alone come into the room. She was ahead of her time in that. She was quite a young girl, extremely smart, developed her strength over the time we had her, determined, very determined. One of several what I call excellent eccentrics. If you knew her sister and her brother, the whole family was talented. Um, Molly wrestled hard. Actually, she inspired me to write this poem back in the 90s that I want to share with you called The Wrestler. She walks into the circle, no hesitation, as she inventories weapons she has honed against the boys, against the odds. She battles with a man's heart. Her teammates, anxious to defend, held back by unseen barriers, signal their acceptance as she infiltrates their ranks and, throwing down the gauntlet of her courage, challenges their limitations. As the whistle blows, the difference melts to sameness, the battle no less fevered, as they both have much to prove. The eyes all around them watch, some for ignorance to be proven, others want the odds rewritten. The winner soon forgotten as the wave of admiration soothes her disappointment. Never satisfied with losing, never satisfied at all, she plots strategies of victory and never stops to hear the cheers.
Well done, TR.
Yeah.
Well done.
That was Molly Bitters.
She was a pioneer. I just finished refereeing, officiating a girls' sectional in Geneseo, IHSA, full-blown, fully sanctioned IHSA girls' sectional. But when Molly was wrestling, it was very rare to see a female on the mat wrestling a guy. And so she was definitely a pioneer well before the onslaught of females we now have racing our sport.
Well,
so,
I mean, Canelan, where I'm at now, we have a young lady who's won. She's a sophomore. She's a two-time state champ. I mean,
wow.
it's unbelievable. I went down to girls' state this year to watch her team. We ended up getting third. It was unbelievable. It's just amazing how that sport has grown.
It's exploding. It's fantastic.
It is wonderful.
All of our poignant moments don't necessarily take place engaged in active wrestling. A very distinct memory that I'll share with you involves Kurt Rohlwing, one of our guests, and Todd Costa, the other guest. We were, I think, at the end of practice, and I don't know exactly how the conversation started, but I remember Kurt lamenting, expressing his frustration and the difficulty of adhering to the athletic code, which means that you can't be smoking, you can't be drinking, you can't be stealing, you can't be a bonehead. And Kurt was shook up. He was shook up about it. He was emotionally involved. I think there was it was either sweat or tears on your face. I was struck, and my eyes were opened to the difficulty of adhering to an athletic code, especially at the time that you guys were wrestling. And, Todd, and I think you said Todd was there watching it. He'll join in on this. And Kurt said, if it wasn't for him, and you're pointing at Todd, I don't know, there's nobody else to be a friend with. I'm lucky I've got him, something along those lines. I just remember being struck and appreciating the fact that you were adhering to the code, Kurt, and you were a leader for other people, showing that you can be a good athlete, you can be a good student, you can be popular, you can be successful, and you don't have to drink and smoke and steal and do other odd things along those lines. So that was certainly a poignant moment for us.
Yeah, I fought that fight all the way, or almost all the way through high school, right? Where as long as I was an athlete, I stayed home on some Saturday nights because everyone else was out doing things that I just was not doing at that time. And, I think part of it was I was committed to being the best athlete I could be. I didn't have the natural talent that some people had. I had to work for it. I think that level of commitment is what makes a wrestler, though. We are, wrestlers, you guys know, you've been around them for so long. We're a rare breed. And when you get that mindset, you have to stick with it. It was a challenge. And like I said, I missed out on a lot of social opportunities in high school, chasing a dream and trying to be the best I could be. And I would say I don't regret it at all. In fact, I remember, at the end of my senior season, Tom, you set up an interview with a reporter from the Daily Herald, and that was really a big part of the article, was talking about how I avoided those types of things and, tried to live the straight life, and because of everything that I was trying to accomplish on the mat. So, and then, like I said back then, and, Todd was a great friend through all that. I had good mentors, and, but definitely was something that shaped my teenage years.
Kurt, I got to throw in something there too, in testament to what you're saying, that, boy, I remember you. I could have, as a 6th grader, 7th grader, I could have spun you in a circle and pointed you towards the mat, and you would bounce off walls and then fall in there. And you came farther from middle school to a serious senior than any other kid I ever had. And it was because of that dedication that you had. I saw it in every aspect of you.
Well, and I would say, like, honestly, wrestling, I always say to people, wrestling changed my life almost as much as anything in my upbringing, in terms of, like, giving me that confidence and that drive. And, I think it's taken me to where I am in my career now, where,
which is superintendent of schools for Canelan. Is it appropriately named Canelan District?
Yep. Canelan 302.
Nice.
So, it's, I truly believe that people who actually identify wrestling as, like, part of their identity, right? Not just the kid that's on the team, but the people that are truly wrestlers. The lessons you learn on that mat are immeasurable. And I just think that's, to me, that's such an important part of that sport.
Sacrifice. Go ahead, Todd.
I was gonna say my favorite moment of one of my favorite moments in high school is watching the Wheaton Christian tournament when Kurt won it. And I can remember, he was a friend, and I was sitting in the stands with Justin Thiel, and I was already done wrestling, and he was getting ready to start warming up. And we're watching him wrestle in the finals, and he got through a really tough bracket, and he's winning this finals match. And I remember Justin looked at me, and not in a bad way, but he just said, "Did you think he was going to win this thing?" And I said, "No." And he won. And I remember both of us jumping in here like, yeah, we were so happy for him. And we were just ecstatic watching our friend and teammate win a really tough tournament and show that hard work and dedication. So that was a great moment for me, watching him wrestle and win.
Yeah. Well, you guys both sacrificed. There's so much sacrificing going on in sports and wrestling. Of course, we're highly biased, but we know that the tremendous amount of sacrifice in the conditioning, in the weight control, in the getting out in a mat and being by yourself and going through it. And then you add on top of it, adhering to the athletic code. There's a tremendous amount of sacrifice that has allowed you two gentlemen to be the successes that you are.
Yeah, definitely teaches you hard work and dedication and what it takes to be successful.
I agree. And I think that, I think, one of the stories that I shared earlier, in our pre-work was Pingrazio. I think it was Bob. I think it was the older Pingrazio. And
that was Greg.
Greg?
Greg's older.
I think about this all the time. It just pops into my head. And I apologize for the rain in the background, gentlemen. But Greg, I don't know if he ever won a match. And I remember when he got to the second period, we were at home. I don't remember who we were wrestling. I was on that side. And he got to the second period, and the home crowd stood up and gave him a standing ovation because he had never gotten that far.
Yeah.
And the reason I think about that, and it's one of those, like, sticks in your brain and in your heart, is that kid wrestled for 4 years. And while he may have never even won a match, I guarantee you that he is a success in what he does. He ended up getting into a great engineering school. I mean, the kid's brilliant. But he's a success in what he does because he learned how to withstand everything wrestling will throw at you, and never even saw the success that, the people on this podcast have seen. So to me, like, that is the epitome of really the heart of wrestling.
He had adversity and he had the grit to deal with it.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I always wonder, I worked really hard to be as good as I was. And, I see all these other guys who worked hard to be as they were. But I always think, even coaching wise, is like, how hard is it going to be for him to keep showing up to practice and keep showing up to meets when he knows the odds are against him,
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be so tough to keep showing up. And, it's like, I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and he's on the other end. And I just didn't, just that dedication to keep showing up and getting better and working hard. And
Hey, let's take this opportunity right here to hear from our sponsors, okay? Brief message coming up.
Around P-Town, it's got the news that you can use. Around P-Town. AroundPtown.com, it's got the scoop with all the poop.
Ben's Barbershop, it's a place I like to stop. Whether it's to get a fancy do or just buzz off my mop, Ben's Barbershop. It's a place I like a lot, and you'd like it too if he did your do at Ben's Barbershop. That's Ben's Barbershop in Morrison, Illinois. Look him up on Facebook, make an appointment, tell him Jimmy I'm a doofus sent you.
Tim, I need your help. I need your help with the name of another wrestler who also had limited athletic ability. He was heavy at one point in his life, then he lost a tremendous amount of weight, so his skin was real.
Oh my gosh.
Phil?
Phil Nikitas.
I remember Phil Nikitas, who struggled with athletic ability. He couldn't skip rope. Everybody else in the practice room is just whipping through, whoa, 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 doing all kinds of fancy things with skip ropes. And literally, Phil had to do one jump at a time, let the rope set still, and then kind of step over it. And that went on for 3 years, with each year him getting a little bit better. But I remember staring at him in practice his senior year, and he was skipping rope continuously, looking like everybody else. That was a victory. That was a W.
I think it was physiological because Phil had shoulders that enabled him to never be pinned in his entire life and strike fear into the crowd that he was going to be broken.
My sophomore year, Phil and I were the same weight class, and we're both 145. I was varsity. He challenged me every week, and I never pinned. It would be a 6-minute match every week. And when you're 15, you're like, this is annoying, man. We're going to do this again. But now you look back on it and you think like, now that I have, I'm not a 15-year-old idiot, right? You look back,
says who?
That kid was willing to try every week to unseat me. Every single week. That's heart, And
it's heart.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're into comedians roasting each other's life choices or turning yesterday's bad decisions into today's funny stories, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Download the Amazon Music app and get in on the joke, or go to amazon.com/ad-free comedy. That's amazon.com/ad-free comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
So we've had people with not much success on the mat giving us poignant moments. Todd, tell us about the success you had early in your career. You qualified for state as a sophomore.
Yeah, just a quick little background. I talked to the football coach as a freshman, and I didn't go to the summer practices, and he kind of blew me off, told me I was too late. I actually showed up for the first basketball practice, not the first wrestling practice. No one will ever remember this. No one will remember this. And they didn't let me do anything in basketball. He's put me in this corner watching everybody. And I walked out, and I was walking by the wrestling room, and a guy I knew opened the door up and said, "Step in." And I went in there, and then Tom came around and said, "Start running." And I started running, and now I'm on the wrestling team.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's the truth of it.
I love it.
Being a small guy, and I wasn't even the best guy in the team my freshman year, although I had some success. But sophomore year, I started off, I think, 3-3. And then I had a good run, but I don't think anyone thought I was going to qualify for state. So qualifying for state for me as a sophomore, kind of being a long shot, really gives you confidence as a person, even off the mat, and kind of gives you the name. And it kind of just, builds you up in a certain way that you can walk proudly. And so that was a really big, because I don't think anyone thought I was going to qualify. And then even a bigger moment was after I qualified, I'm in the locker room getting ready to go to state, and a senior, Ben Seeley, came in, and he was wishing me well, and he had a big smile, and he shook my hand, and he's like, "Go get him downstate, man." And he was so happy, and he didn't qualify, but he still had enough, I don't know the word for it. He just was enough of a leader and enough of a good person that he came in to wish me well, and that was someone I always tried to, put myself, model myself after a guy like that who had that much humility saying that. So, but just qualifying for state and getting down there, and it really helped me out, in the long run, as far as finding myself a bit and knowing my place on the wrestling team. And it was just, for me, it was just a big moment. So.
Well, I could testify you came out of nowhere, because as a freshman, I took 3 kids to Glenbard South, Dabney, Thiel, and Costa. And Todd wins the championship, and all of a sudden, I go back to coach like, I don't know, this kid's got something. And then the rest was history.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most decorated wrestlers in history, in Wauconda history.
Yeah,
And
interestingly enough, you never know. I mean, I tell people this all the time. You never know when you start how many matches you're going to win. Am I going to win 1, 10? I don't know the end result. I just went out and worked as hard as I could, and it ended up pretty well for me. So
Todd's one of the few wrestlers for Wauconda High School that have qualified for state 3 times. Obviously, many, many wrestlers did not. And one that hurt was Tyler Husko. Tyler Husko wrestled for us for 4 years. He was a captain of our team the senior year, was a great captain. What a great role model. What a gutsy kid. Did have some big matches. I remember he won the dual meet against Antioch. That was a sweet W. They had their TV camera set up. They had their spotlights. It was their home meet. And then, of course, they invite Wauconda so they can beat them and have a W and make it all just rosy and whatnot. Well, that didn't happen for the Sequoids that particular night. Because Husko, I'm not sure if it was his last match or not that won it, but I know that he was critical in us winning that dual meet in a tough, grinding match. And he had success. Tyler did have success, and he had every right to think that he had a shot of qualifying for state, and he didn't. It was a year after I'd already graduated, and I'm in the stands and I'm watching him. I'm pulling for this kid who I have a lot of respect for, who I really like, and he didn't qualify. And I went into the locker room afterwards. Actually, the sectional tournament still going on. I go into the locker room. I think we hosted that year. So we're in the Wauconda locker room, and Tyler is sprawled out on the bench, lying on his stomach, his head buried in his arms, his dad sitting across from him, and Tyler's crying. So I just sat down and I had a conversation with his dad, loud enough so that Tyler could hear. And we talked about, the kind of kid he is and how much it hurts to, if anybody deserved to go to state, it would have been Tyler Husko, and he didn't go. And I think the last thing I said, you're still captain. And you got another job to do, and that's to get the team downstate. So that was his, and of course they did go downstate.
He did.
And they took,
Yes,
he
they did.
Yeah. And he took second place, and he got his medal, and to a large degree, no, he was the captain. He was leading that team. He was setting the example. He showed people how to work and how to be courageous, and the team had tremendous success, and a lot of it was due to him.
And Tyler had 40 wins that season.
Nice.
Came a long way. He said that. He was amazed that, he had reached that pinnacle, but I remember the loss. It was tough to take.
Yeah, it was. And sometimes you get second chances, like TR with your second chance coaching, leading to that state championship match.
Speaking of Tyler Husko as a captain, yes. Like you said, after your senior season was my senior year as a teacher, and I got a great opportunity, because you emptied the room, to interview for a spot on the coaching staff. And Mike Burr, as the head coach, hired me on. Scott Carlson was there coaching as an assistant. I got to know him real well because I missed out on coaching him. What a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And through the year, it was really an unusual mix of middle of the road athletes, and they bought in 100%. And you had given them such a great foundation. They worked so well together. And then these two young coaches, Yauk and Mike Burr, brought in what I called funk wrestling, which is really the prevalence of college wrestling, what's happening at the time. Dennis Lang would be so proud that leaping to his back and giving up takedowns is the way to do it. He passed the leg better than any college wrestler I've ever seen. So it was a new style for me. I was definitely the relic in the room, but I was given many opportunities to contribute, and I got to sit next to Mike there downstate. And for me, it was my chance at a state medal that I never got. So I couldn't have been more proud and happy, and what a great opportunity for me.
And I still believe that that's the highest team finish in any sport of Wauconda.
I believe you're right.
Yeah. So lots of success there, and I'm glad you were a part of that. About another, well, let's go with another success story. Todd, reflect upon our winning of a wrestling sectional, or regional rather, at our place.
Oh yeah, we knew we had a pretty good team that year. We didn't, but we knew that we had a good chance at winning it. And I remember, not calling anybody out, but I remember the morning time didn't go so well. We had a guy blow weight, and it seemed like we didn't know what was going to happen, in that meet. And just watching all the guys come together and win all those matches, because we never had much success when I was there. So to watch us win that regional, and it came down to that last match where I remember Cody Smith had to win, and Cody Smith beat a tough kid. And I remember the whole team just running on the mat and just crowding around on him. And it was just, it was a real special moment, as watching a whole bunch of great kids and all the coaches and all the hard work they put in.
Tim was talking about throwing legs in, and Cody Smith, as a heavyweight, threw the legs in. We'd never seen him throw the legs in the entire year. And it's at a critical moment in a match. We're all going, no. Well, okay, all right, yeah. Oh, it was a big moment for Cody because his father had just passed a couple of weeks ago. It was the pain of that death was fresh on our team. And one of the things I was proud about, not only, of course, ecstatic about winning regionals, but ecstatic about the way our team pulled together. We decided we were going to raise funds by shoveling snow. We just kind of threw it together, and we raised a great deal of money. And kids just went out of their way to show support for Cody. It was great watching our team pull together and make another sacrifice for somebody else, to be selfless and to give when somebody needed it. It was good to be a part of.
Yeah, it was a great season, and like I said, it was great to be part of a successful team and a bunch of great kids, and a good coaching staff, and it was fun.
We had other notable wins. Stevenson and Grant were two teams that Wauconda struggled to be successful against forever, and those were two fun wins. Tim, what do you remember about the Stevenson win?
You know what I remember. It was a great meet, but everything aside was eclipsed by the dressing down that the Stevenson wrestling team got from their famous head coach behind a thin wall. So we weren't the only ones that heard it. All the fans hadn't had a chance to leave. And there was a slew of obscenities. And
it was colorful.
It was very colorful, and he acted as if he didn't think Wauconda could beat them, but we did.
In a very improbable way. As I recall, we were down by a lot with 4 matches to go, and I think I remember you saying to me, if we pin everybody, we'll win. Like that's gonna happen. And
no problem, just pin them all.
Damned if it didn't.
Ever the optimist.
Oh, good times. And we beat Grant for the first time in my first time since the 1950s, according to records that we looked at. And so the first time that I had ever beat him, unfortunately, the head coach, I can't remember his name now, I could see him so well. He had said something about losing to Stevenson early this year, and Stevenson acted like it was New Year's Eve, running around the gym and blah, blah, blah. So when we did beat them in an improbable way, I told Brian Kent, I said, hey, because we had to go through the whole criteria. We won by criteria because it was tied. I said, make it look like we've done this before. So we were really cool and calm about it. But it was a great moment. Sherman, first name, please.
Jake.
Thank you. Jake Sherman was wrestling the last match, and he's going up against a kid who had beat him earlier. And we got to have Jake win in order for us to win the match. We thought maybe he was going to have to pin the kid, but we soon found out all he's got to do is win. But against a kid you already lost to in a very highly critical moment, wrestled one of probably the best match of his life, and did give us that win. What an exciting moment.
Well, a key moment there, because last year reffing, I'm walking down the hall speaking with a young gentleman. He wrestled for Grant and certainly came back around to that meet. And he was the one that had to wrestle Cody. Help me out with his last name.
No, I don't know.
Well, Cody won that match, and I think that's the one that put you ahead before Jake got his victory. So I think that was the match, and he said he returned to Grant kind of in shame for having lost the match. He never got over it.
His loss, our win. And a notable loss was to Huntley High School when this brand new head coach named Kurt Rohlwing.
Yeah, he was the worst.
God, he took us down, and I don't think we got beat bad. It was relatively close, but
No,
I don't know if
Tom, that one went to criteria too.
Well,
I still have the newspaper article from that match.
Oh my God!
I'm thinking about putting it up in my new office. But yeah, I mean, it helped that I had a great. That was my first year at Huntley. I just left Wauconda. Most of the varsity team at Wauconda I had coached for 5 years, so I may have had the most in-depth scouting report on an opponent ever.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, I'm not gonna lie, I juggled my my lineup around a little bit, and but for me it wasn't just it wasn't about beating you guys. Obviously, if anyone could, I always cheered for Wauconda unless they were wrestling Huntley at the time. But for me it was like kind of feeling like I made it a little bit.
Well, I'm sure I was cheering for you right up to the last freaking match.
Well, I remember you. I remember you being very gracious in defeat and telling me how proud you were. So,
well, I'm glad that's the way it came across, because there was a part of me inside that was not happy. I do not like getting beat by rookie coaches. God dang it! I've been coaching for 20 some odd years, and this guy comes out his first year and beats us. Son of a.
Yeah.
Well done. You're obviously doing a good job of coaching.
Oh, by the way, Tom, that was Cody Alvarado, if you remember now, wrestling for you against Grant with a key match.
Yeah. Losses and wins, they are the source of poignant moments. And that concludes part 1 of us talking about poignant moments in Wauconda Wrestling. We'll have another episode for you next month where we'll have plenty more of discussions about wins, losses, tears, and cheers. See you then.
Shut up! And kids, don't forget to be checking in with AroundPtown.com. It's got all the news that you can use. Stay hip, stay classy with AroundPtown.com. And for you fellas that want that hip and classy look, well, then you're going to want to get your butt to Ben's Barbershop chair. That's right, Ben's Barbershop. Look him up on Facebook.com. He's in Morrison. You make an appointment, you're going to love it. If you enjoyed listening to Boomer here, he'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to his podcast so you'd get notifications of when the next episode's coming up. Maybe leave a rating on a review. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe. That helps the podcast grow, and that makes the little fella feel so much better. And if you have any feedback for him, go ahead and contact him at ttaudioworks@gmail.com. Again, that's ttaudioworks@gmail.com. Okay, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.